All right, welcome in. Huge updates from today's Cowboys padded practice. Contract talks heating up with multiple players. Does Cowboys wide receiver George Pickens really want to be here? We asked him that. He gave us a great answer. We'll give it to you. Plus, we had a Cowboys injury scare for the ages in Oxnard today. Cowboys coach Brian Schottenheimer talking a run game. And, of course, the best Cowboys plays of today's padded practice. Let's do this.
The only thing else I got to say is, how about this, Cowboys?
Yeah, buddy, welcome in. I'm Gavin Dawson from 105.3 The Fans, G-Bag Nation, 2 to 7 every weekday. And welcome into How About Wow. Of course, joining me, as always, is my favorite football Neanderthal, New Bear Lesniewski. How the hell you doing, buddy?
You're a poet and you didn't even know. Did you know that rhymed? Did you script that? You did, didn't you, little shit?
Maybe I did. I needed help keeping up with your insane football IQ brain power. So I may or may not have asked ChatGPT for a little bit of help on that. We do have some George Pickens coming up. Okay. He joined us on 105.3 The Fan today. You can check out that entire interview at Dallas Fan Cam. But here's what I got for you, buddy, and why we're talking about George. With the deal for Jake Ferguson yesterday, contract talks are in the air. Many players and their agents actively working on deals in Oxnard. So I think the most interesting one is George Pickens because they didn't draft him. They just traded for him. And they have never paid two premium wide receivers at the same time. So we had George Pickens on. We asked him,
does this seem like a place you would want to make a permanent home, George?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Yeah, most definitely. Because I watched the team for so long and the camaraderie, like, I kind of understand the camaraderie more than I did in Pittsburgh. Yeah. You see what I mean? Like, even what you guys do, like the Cowboys is, like I said, they're known for the Super Bowl. Right. See what I mean? Like, that's what they're known for. If they weren't known for that, then no one would care about the Cowboys. But they're known for that. Then the camaraderie of the people give that same energy because they also want to see it again. So, like, I think I definitely understand the more here, the people more here than I did up there because I'm from the South. That's, that's a whole nother deal. Like,
well, right on, man. I mean, we love to have you, and hopefully you feel understood as well. Now, let me just ask you from a business perspective, it probably makes sense to go have a huge season, right? Yeah. And then talk contract.
Yeah, most definitely. Try to go. That's definitely like what I want to focus on first because money's everywhere. Yeah. Money's all over the world. Sure. So I definitely want to try to, like I said, help them win, like get a Super Bowl. And I think that's kind of like, the Cowboys such a big brand that kind of seeps in. You see what I mean? Like, you see what I mean? So like
everybody eats.
Yeah. So if you just stick to the main thing and try to really keep it on the gridiron, like how it used to be back in the day, we'll definitely do something special.
Do something special. I know that's got to excite Cowboys fans, and I think it's possible that he does something special. From a team perspective, New Bear, if you don't sign him before this special season, he might become too expensive. And I can't risk that. If I'm the Cowboys front office, I'm blowing up George Pickens' agent trying to get this deal done before the season I know he can have with Dak Prescott.
Yeah, I don't I don't want to take this line because it's a true prove it or lose it season for him. But I'm just doing the math, and I'm looking at Brandon Ayuk going 75, 1,307, and then getting paid, $30+ million and being the top 5 receiver before DK leapfrogs him and Amon-Ra, Garrett Wilson, all these guys get paid. I don't think if you're the Dallas Cowboys, you should be doing anything other than trying to get George Pickens as much as $125 million or 100. If you can get him to go to 5, we're talking about 5 for 125, 4 for 100, similar to the Trevon Diggs, right? Diggs at 97 for 4, but you should be pressing, just smashing send on PDFs with offers at 3 for 90 and go from there.
That's a great idea. Yeah, because George Pickens is so young that 27 years old, he's still going to be in line for an absolute market-setting contract.
Well, you're talking about in 3 years. He's 24 years old.
Yeah.
Right? So you give him that flexibility and you say, this is what we're willing to do for you up front. Now you give us a couple million and then we'll see where we are in 3 years.
Yeah, and that's tough because the Cowboys have never paid 2 wide receivers, right? Right around the time that CeeDee Lamb had been drafted and was heading for an extension, it was time for Amari Cooper to go. They let Alvin Harper go for Michael Irvin. You know, I've never seen it, you know, where is George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb high enough quality that this should be the first time the Cowboys are willing to pay two guys in their prime?
All I'm saying is Cortland Sutton is now wide receiver 11 in the whole damn league. He just got 92 for 4. That's 23. When you go 1 to 10, we're talking Jamar Chase to A.J. Brown. It's a difference of $8 million. If DK Metcalf with one All-Pro 2 season is worth 132 with, I mean, he's number 4. He's on Mount Rushmore. Like, what are we talking about? From DK Metcalf at 4 to Cortland Sutton, give me names. Garrett Wilson, he deserves to be paid. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Brandon Ayuk was instantly regrettable. Ink wasn't dry yet. ACL hadn't torn yet. And you're looking at that going, man, we're really paying this guy $30 million a year. GP does the same thing that Ayuk did in 2023. He's gone. Someone else is going to pay him.
Well, fortune favors the bold. And right now, I imagine the Cowboys are looking at this like the Steelers didn't even want to keep this guy. He had all these problems with personal fouls and staying engaged. We're going to make him earn this. And I think that insistence on having it proven to them is exactly what's going to prevent them from keeping it.
But hold on, though, dude. The variables here. Age 24 season, right? This is prove it or lose it. So fine. Back him into that corner. Be on your best behavior. The kid's only made $6.6 million in 4 years. So I'm talking about 3 for 90 as like the tippity top of where you start, and then you squeeze from there, because if he doesn't immediately accept it, then that offer's gone. And then when you go to rebuild, now you're at 4 for 100. You're $5 million less per, and we control you into the beginning of what is supposed to be your athletic prime.
This is the game the Cowboys are playing right now, trying to see how many players they can wedge in under the salary cap if they get a bunch of them to take 20, 25, 30% below market value. And they've been doing this for a long time. I remember Tyron Smith did a deal that might still be the most team-friendly contract in the history of the Cowboys, because you get players at camp sometimes separated from their agents, but definitely in a mode where they see a guy today and Tyler Guyton get hurt, and you're going home thinking, oh geez, what's stopping me from being Tyler Guyton laying there on that field and not having any bag for my family?
All it takes is one play. And I mean, really, we saw that one play today with the FU ball from Dak, right? He hadn't hit it to CD yet, but damn, can GP track the moon ball?
Yes, and we're going to get that play a little bit later on in the best plays of the day here on How About Wow. We've been doing it every day at Cowboys training camp, and some absolute bangers of plays are coming through.
Just real quick, just to think about years past, everyone wants to talk about what GP hasn't done, and I just want to give you guys just real quick, forget target share and all the other things that you could use to potentially just like diffuse. Just think about this for a second. Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, Mitchell Trubisky, 3,100 yards on the season and 13 touchdowns on a season. In that year, okay, George Pickens goes for 18 yards a catch, throws up 1140, over a third of the receiving yards on just 6 catches, and he only had 5 touchdowns. They only had 13 as a team. You put him with a real quarterback, and it's right. And now you lock this dude up and you start looking at the math of it and how much sense it makes. Like, we're literally talking about Cortland Sutton in his age 30 season with just a couple of 1,000-yard years and a big-time knee injury in his history, right? And he just got 23 per. He just got 92 for 4. Like, this isn't a crazy thing. And, oh, by the way, the next thing you're going to do is come over the top and talk about where the salary cap's going to go and how much smaller the Pickens hit ultimately becomes.
Yeah, I mean, the players are compensated based on a percentage for their position in today's salary cap numbers, but how quickly those are accelerating, 10% a year. After 3 years with the compounding, it has grown a significant amount, and that's when you end up with a guy who's now suddenly no longer in the top 10 of players at his position, and you have a salary cap advantage. So we'll get to the next player here in just a second, Noob. Newberry, but I think through this exercise, what the light bulb that went on my head right there was, if the next contract announced is George Pickens, I don't think it would be. I think that's the most excited. That would be the contract I would love the most out of some of these that the Cowboys are trying to work on. But I wanted to get the next one in. Here we go. We started the G-Bag Nation today. And about halfway through the first hour, Bobby Belt of the morning show showed up with this revelation about what was going on down there at the field.
And let's bring in Bobby Belt, buddy. What's happening down there?
How's it going, guys? Yeah, I was just walking around the practice field, and it is of note. We heard the opening press conference where, they said, well, have you thought about getting anything done with Tyler Smith? And Stephen Jones said, what makes you think we haven't been talking to Tyler Smith?
Yeah.
We just generally don't talk about our business in front of everywhere. Well, out there on the practice field today is Joe Panos, who is the agent for Tyler Smith. And Joe has a history of getting training camp deals done with the Cowboys and getting stuff done in a similar fashion. We talked about earlier.
Okay, I love this. I thought Tyler Smith would be one of these guys so good at his job, 3 years in. Oh, wait, guys, I'm going for the top of the market. But if Joe's here, Tyler's, playing as the second best guard in the NFL. If they're friendly, and I think we even have a picture of them like talking with Stephen Jones, Joe. Maybe Tyler Smith is going to give us the massive blessing of a team-friendly deal to get done early.
Is it crazy to think that the blessing in disguise with this Guyton thing is how much it impacts his running buddy on the left side? I mean, if and I think you might have already said this, so if I'm excuse me, I'm not trying to come over the top and steal your thunder from what we were talking about earlier, but if we agree that if he's going to potentially get kicked out to left tackle, you're not even having a conversation.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if I'm Tyler Smith and I feel like the Cowboys are saying we're going to move you out to left tackle at some point, then I am going to become a son of a bitch in this contract negotiation, because the last thing I'm going to do is do this contract at guard and then have you move me to tackle, bro. That would be messed up. That would be an instant holdout. Oh, I signed the contract last week. Well, too bad I ain't playing this week. That's how I do that.
You said that GP would be the one you were most excited about. I think it would come down to the terms, because if they were to do some crazy moonball deal where it's 2 or 3 and it's a minimum years thing because he wants to hit free agency again after he proves it, but also gets some of that security. The Tyler Smith one is the one I'm most excited about, because if they're able to solidify this and able to just anchor him in and not mess around with kicking him out, solve that problem on its own, and then go build from literally the inside out the best offensive line in football, then I think we're having a different conversation across the board in the coming years, because
Absolutely.
Then you're going to have to, the impetus becomes to go find your bell cow back to run behind these guys. And when that young man is becoming the Pro Bowl All-Pro that we want to see him run into, then you might be able to let Pickens walk if he is too rich.
Yeah, you could. And I think there's multiple ways to skin this cat. I mean, at the end of the year, if Pickens plus Lamb doesn't give you the dynamic playmaking ability, maybe you'd be happy that you hadn't done a deal with Pickens, because you want to take that money and allocate it elsewhere. I'm fascinated to know, like, will CD plus Pickens open things up for Dak in a way that will make him efficient even against clog and cover? Or will you be thinking, damn it, we got to come back and be more of a power team, right? And have our offensive linemen throw a running back here, go get ourselves some run defense with our other assets, and maybe flush the idea of Dak Prescott with his average accuracy passing us to a Super Bowl as the strength and identity of our team. I'm pretty skeptical about that right now, New Bear. If you hadn't noticed.
The $60 million man and kicking the can and all the things that we've talked about in the previous weeks, George Pickens either fixes that or he doesn't. If George Pickens doesn't do minimum table stakes, Brandon Ayuk 2023 All-Pro 2, then this whole thing needs to get nuked.
Thank you. I love it. Well said. Up next here on How About Wow. I'm not done yet here with good players who are sniffing around for money. They want some of that Jerry Jones oil real estate concessions money. And it's DaRon Bland. good corner, good takeaway corner. And John Machota reporting Bland saying there have been talks between his agent and the Cowboys about an extension. Dallas is always where I want to be. Hopefully can get it done. I think DaRon Bland, Trayvon Diggs frustrate fans because they aren't the total corner. They're a takeaway corner. They're an interception corner playmaker. But I just know when he and Diggs were on their game together, you could get away with playing bad run defense. You could get away with, oh crap, this team just scored 28 points on us in the first half, and now we're down, because these guys would go make plays that could totally change the momentum. I think there is a point of diminishing return, like with a player like a Donovan Wilson. Too much sizzle, not enough substance behind his game. But with players like Diggs and Bland, I think they cover well enough. And I mean, if the market at corner is $32 million right now, if you could get Bland essentially at the APY that you gave Diggs at $20 million, man, it's a ton of money. And now you're talking about paying 2 wide receivers or 2 corners, which is another thing they have not done. But it just seems to me right now, you've got a lot of players that are willing to play ball, is what we're finding out. They're seeing that Jake Ferguson contract and the Osa Odighizowa contract, which was well below market value, and saying, yes, I want to get signed up for some of that. And George Pickens understands the value of, can you win being a Cowboy, right? It's going to blow your brand up more than any other team times 2. And then the business opportunities of locking here in North Texas, because it's not just that your team is great and your team has visibility. It's that Dallas-Fort Worth is the 4th or 5th biggest media market and the best place to do business in all of America.
You can't talk about Pickens and what he hasn't made yet because he wasn't a 1 and he didn't have that balloon 5th-year option, right, pickup where you go from making $1 million, making $1.3 million, making $3 million to making 17. He hasn't had that big payday. He's had the news, alone about the $250,000 in fines is like nothing to sneeze at when you've only made 6. And when you think about Bland, I think last year the foot, right? When you talk about Guyton almost going down today and what that might do with them sharing an agent and potentially being one play away to maybe create a impetus for a deal to get done. I mean, if you're looking at Bland playing 7 games last year and being uncertain, that's the word that was over him all. Is he going to play? Is he good? Is he going to play? Is he good? And when you think about bleep you money, and we're talking about anything pushing, $100 million over the course of a career, you can still get there real easily just on the playing side. But what you're talking about with the Pepsi money, what you're talking about with everything else that comes with it, car dealership. You start a car dealership at Frisco as a former Cowboy player. I mean, it's limitless to the place, to the places that this can go. And let's not forget too, you talk about him not being a complete corner. This isn't Dion out there refusing to tackle. This is a guy he will put his face in the fan 50 or 60 times over the course of a year. I mean, he's a tough kid. He wants to make plays so bad that he's willing to trust his instincts to take a risk. And every once in a while, you're going to see one go up over your head, right?
Yeah.
And we take that because he's taken 5 back the other way. And the most concerning thing right now is he going to be the same player he was 2 years ago? Is that foot really right? And then what does that insecurity create as an opportunity for the team from a business perspective to, quite frankly, take advantage of a situation?
Yeah. And I don't know what the answer is to that. I hope the Cowboys get this right. They don't have a tremendous amount of success over the last 15 years at cornerback, like finding the right ones in free agency. But it seems like now it's almost the perfect storm because, Diggs and Bland not making a top end money and not being great coverage guys. You know what that does, New Bear? It entices the quarterback to think dude's open. And that's when their offensive skill set, takes over. They go get the football. I guess my main concern with Bland would be he had that one big year with the pick sixes. But other than that, has there been the ball production per game that would suggest he can maintain that? Like, could you be falling for what you saw in 2023. Well, now it's 2025, and it was just 1 year really where he had all that ball production, right?
Right, and PFF doesn't love him, and I think last year was he top 50 last year, even with all the back and forth, and obviously that's a much more limited snap count. So you could argue that that's less chances for him to take chances and to get beat as much as he might go beat the other team. I also want to live in a world where we're talking about Dak being back and we're talking about CD and GP. And to your point, it's not even about if you're down, 28-7 at the half, or, there's a little bit of a runaway train that you can come back. It's the offensive side of the way these guys play defense, where if they go get one of those in the first half and you hit a big shot, and you start talking about the speed and the horizontal stretch to go with the verticality of a George Pickens with Turpin or Jaden Blue, and now all of a sudden we're dictating terms because we're front runners, and now we got those front seven turned loose. And Easy isn't just defensive rookie of the year. We're talking about him snatching defensive player of the year votes because the counting stats, and especially on a per snap basis. I mean, if this is a dude who goes out and every time you see him, it's third down, and it's like Maximus walking out into the Coliseum because that quarterback's just about to get hunted, then this is a completely different team. So, if you got risk-taking guys and they pay off, you don't mind that when both sides of the ball are playing off each other.
Well said, sir. I guess the only other thing that I would want to add to this is we're talking about this salary cap management strategy of getting players to buy in. It's kind of happened in the NBA right now with players saying, I'll take less to try to win a championship. It sucks that the Jones family, with their entire empire of wealth, they're not, sacrificing to try to create a roster advantage. This is on the players. This is the most backward thing in the world. Like, the Cowboys get a $500 million check every year just for having the Cowboys.
Are you talking about like you want the Jones family to sell stake in the team and take a hit in the wallet like directly, or how would they sacrifice in a salary cap era where like the rules are the rules and we're all playing the same game, and the Eagles doing what they're doing is like you have to get league approval just like Tom Brady did to be an owner, right? Like he might have, what do you want to do?
You don't have to sell equity to come up with cash flow, right? The Cowboys have the businesses.
You just
oil
want to see them max out, like ceiling year after year after year after year. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I want them to spend the same amount of money that they are. I just want them to choose years out of a decade that we're going for a championship. So if this is the year, they're like, well, our left tackle is bad. Let's trade for a good left tackle. Let's add a defensive tackle and get a better linebacker. That's probably $60 million of payroll we're going to add to this thing. And then maybe in 27 or 28, we're going to take that year and flush all of our dead money, get a good draft pick, and then try it again. That's how the Eagles got to 2 Super Bowls in 8 years.
So you're talking about making this year's money work as hard as it possibly can, even if it totally, foo bars, 3.
I mean, basically, it's a credit card analogy or a payday loan analogy, right? That the working man can relate to. I'm going to take this credit card and have a hell of a time this summer, and for the next 2 years, I'm going to have to pay it off, and we're going to have to sacrifice. I think the Cowboys look at it like we have 17 TV dates a year guaranteed with the regular season, and we need to deliver for ourselves and the league. And planning to be bad for 2 or 3 years in a row could really deep six our brand. And I think that's where maybe the business genius of Jerry Jones figuring out a way, how do I maximize the return on every dollar I spend on this football team is not in line with
our year. Every year could be our year.
Every year is our year. Yeah, it's a trap.
I'll sort of meet you in the middle in as much as if they're sitting there with 20-25 million in salary cap space, and we go into September 4th, Thursday night, and Mike Hilton and Stephon Gilmore are still sitting on the street, and Bland goes out and gets torched because Kyrie Elam is a bust, and Diggs isn't going to be coming back, and we this documentary actually tells us that it's worse, and you start seeing dominoes start to fall, and they sit on their hands when they have all this other stuff, when they're probably going to be 28, 29 points a game, and when you're going to have a chance in every game to go steal a dub. It doesn't matter who else is trotted out on the other side. All you got to do is put light bulbs on the scoreboard. And I don't want to see them sit on their hands and be like, well, someone could go down midseason and we're going to have to go get one of those three. No, do it now. Do it from the outset. Do it as early. Do it in Oxnard. Go make a decision and say, you know what? We don't love Kamon Hall enough to trust him as nickel one. Bring me Mike Hilton for 1 year at 15 and guarantee it. Don't even make it an incentive-laden thing. Just bring the man who I watched sail down the Ohio and take the slot blitz with him until they brought Jalen Ramsey here. Like, I don't want to see something that's glaringly missing when there's a guy who can fill it and them not write that check. I think that's where it's easy to meet you in the middle.
And I do want to say one thing real quick, just to clarify, because I think I misspoke. This isn't on Jerry. This is on Steven. Steven is the financially prudent, shrewd guy that didn't even want the Cowboys to go get Deion Sanders 32 years ago. And if they hadn't done that, they would have been stuck at 4 championships instead of 5. So, his fingerprints have been all over this much more conservative salary cap management from the very, very beginning. And now is just rearing its ugly head because dad in his older age, I don't think he's got the fight or desire to tell his son he's an idiot and he'll never win a Super Bowl like this.
Well, it's funny because that's a double-edged sword too. Just like you talked about the purgatory of every year is our year, trying to win now while you build for the future. But like, I always go back to what he said on Landman, because I don't think that was scripted. I think he just showed up and whatever was scripted, he said, I'm going to talk about my boys. And when you think about this empire,
he's given us, for context, he's given a version of that speech on our radio airwaves at least twice and in like luncheon settings before. So there's a reason he was able to stand up there and knock that thing out of the park off the cuff without needing a script.
And it's just so impactful when you think about the empire that he's built relative to what he set out to do, and not trying to make light or even talk about, like the end of days. Because for all intents and purposes, today could have been the end of it for Tyler Guyton. I mean, it could come for anyone at any time. And, when you look at the way that this thing has, what he set out to do, he did. They tore it down. They rebuilt Rome, not in a day, over several painful ass years. And then they killed everyone. They conquered the world. And it's been 30 years. And there was a time when the balance of power in the league swung based on who they decided to sign.
Yeah. Those were the good old days. And up next here on How About Wow. Okay, let's get to the big plays of today's padded practice in Oxnard, California. Ready to do this, New Bear? I know you can't wait to see this. First deep ball completion. Here we go. I love when he starts running like that when the play's over. And I mean, George Pickens is just a freaking showman. He kind of reminds me of Sean Kemp, the old basketball player. Just his mannerisms and his gesticulations is just all swagger and style and elite athleticism. And I love that Dak finally connected with him. Made it look damn easy, Brad.
Yeah, and I love too that, people who are from a certain kind of place, who speak a certain kind of way, and maybe dress and kind of like just body language, like there's all these little elements where people kind of sleep on George Pickens because they think he's kind of a simple person. And he's actually, when it comes to, it's not just see ball, get ball, like people talk about see ball, hit ball in baseball. He's actually a very conscientious and a very thoughtful young man. All we've seen is the worst part of him be broadcast.
He said something really interesting today as well that reminded me of a basketball player. We talked to him about how when the ball's in the air and it's getting close to you, how do you have an advantage of tracking it and getting it that other players don't? He said he looks at the trajectory and the spin or the properties of the motion of the ball, and if it's turning over or, spinning. So it, kind of reminded me of a Dennis Rodman, where we just have an ability to get a quick look at the ball and then understand how it's going to hit the backboard and the rim and where it's going with all of that, and just a quick snapshot. And I don't think that's something that can be taught. And I guess it's as good an explanation as anything, other than I just have longer arms and a better ability to jump. Well, a lot of people have long arms and can jump.
He trains like a little guy too. He goes and he does a lot of the drills that guys like Turpin do because he's so big. He's very conscientious. He's very self-aware of himself as a football player. He might still have some growing up to do. And there's obviously, he's earned a lot of the criticism, and I'm not backing away from that. I mean, I've said on this show that he should have been sat down. He should have been suspended by the team if everything that, we're being told we're to believe. And he's got to flush that, because there can't be any of that. There can't be even a hint of CDs going for 13 and 186 and 3, and he's over there with one measly catch for 7 yards. He better be the biggest cheerleader with the biggest, richest, most buttery popcorn that exists.
I got another big play here for you, and it's not exactly a football play. It's some incredible dance moves that got the approval of Clarence Hill, All City Dallas. Did you see this?
Yeah.
Atomic Dog came on, and take it away, Donovan Ezra. So, I looked at the Twitter from Clarence Hill on this.
Oh,
and I kind of figured it out with the context clues. He nailed it with the splits, didn't he? I think this is a fraternity thing. This is the Q-Dog thing.
yeah.
Okay.
I was the only thing that could have made this better at all is it almost, for a minute, it almost looked like he was dancing to the beat. And then you kind of realize he's doing his own thing. And then when he goes and, he goes and hits the split, it doesn't have anything to do, with the 808s and whatever's going on. It's all heartbreak for me, because it hurt me just watching him. No.
That's an athlete right there, though, boy. What do you think about the idea that dancers are better football players? I always like the ballerinas make good receivers.
Lynn Swan, and everyone can easily see the correlation between the balletic grace of a wide receiver, like we were just talking about Pickens, tracking, chasing, and then ultimately contorting your body to be able to go make that play. What's really neat is that you see a lot of big dudes. There's a lot over time. The defensive linemen are out there improving their footwork, and offensive linemen too, doing dance classes. And, it's something that, Dancing Bear, I had pretty good feet. I got size 15 clodhoppers, so they better do something for me, because they didn't give me any damn height. But, as you start talking about all the different tools and techniques, we've talked a lot about the stretch, right? From Pilates and yoga. Did I just do it again? Yoga and Pilates. Stop combining words. And all these guys, talk the pliability is like the big buzzword thing. But what's really neat is when you see a lot of these drills and you go back to the fundamental things, like Tom Brady always talked about spray painting the 5 dots in his garage, right? When he didn't make the camp or whatever, and wanted to go prove to people that he wasn't slow and he wasn't a bad athlete. I did that in my own garage too, but that was because we did that 5-dot drill, at my high school. And it could be as simple as the boxing stuff with a jumper. There's so many other elements outside of football that can make you a better football player. And to know that a guy like Ezraku has not only the interest, but also, like, when you think about the training of it, where he's doing things outside of the game that, are good for this, but they're also good for this.
Yeah. He's got a lot to like. I think this Ezraku is going to be an absolute breakout star for this football team. I got more big plays here for you from Oxnard, California, second padded practice of the day. I'm coming to you live here from Holiday Inn in Ventura. New Bear joins me tomorrow, and we are going to have so much great content. Please follow on YouTube at How About Wow, but also on Twitter at How About Wow. Here we go with another Kyrie Elam PBU. This one against our guy Pickens. Here we go. We really didn't get a great angle on that, but just the fact that he keeps getting it done like this is absolutely insane. Like, a good NFL PBU career or season is what, 9, 8? And every time I turn around, this dude had like one every day of OTAs and minicamp, He's had either an interception or multiple PBUs in every day so far here in Oxnard.
Yeah, I mean, I was hitting you the other day with, people were just kind of clapping about the Diggs stuff, and the big thing is where he's locked in and what guys like Sauce and Surtain got, right? I mean, Diggs was a guy that I posted this in the comments, and I was just fact checking myself real quick, but that 11 pick year, he had 21 passes defensed. His first 3 years, he went 14, 21, 14. And remember, as a rookie, he only played 12 games. So when you start talking about it's DaRon Bland, it's the pick sixes and it's the Tecmo Bowl touchdowns going the other way. But young Diggs was just getting it done. And, if you talk about the traits and we just go back to if the best ability is availability, and then, you get into a place where you get put in a doghouse, or you get into a place where you're not quite a scheme fit, or someone sees something on tape from one game or one season in college and they think that that's who you're going to be on Sunday, and maybe you're just not. And maybe you're just not capable of playing that every week in, week out, season over season. That second chance, that fresh start, everything is still in front of Kyrie Elam. I mean, the traits, he didn't get slower. He didn't get shorter. His arms didn't shrink. He could still dunk. Like, let's go.
Yeah, no, that's great context for the whole deal. And I think he's got to be, one of the reasons that this season could be different, because of his ability to apparently cover, get to the football. And he's a great tackler. He's a tough guy. He's become a fan favorite very quickly with his Simba celebration.
One of the cool things about this matchup, too, is that they're both in the same exact spot for completely different reasons. Pickens has production. You don't like the way it happened, and you don't like the way he went about getting it done, right? And Kyrie Elam doesn't have any damn production, and he's just done. And at the same time, Elam's a guy who's made picks in playoff games. I talked the other day about how he got Mahomes, and you just want to see it week in, week out. You want to see the consistency for both of these guys. That's the big theme is, okay, you can go make the highlight reel thing, or you can show up because you're the last man standing, right?
Yeah.
We got to have 11 guys on the field. But, can you do it week one, and then can you do it for 18 weeks?
And we'll see, but right now his confidence is at an all-time high. He was on with our morning show today, and just listening to him talk, you can tell he's having a ball and he believes in himself. And from my understanding, that wasn't always the case in Buffalo. Okay, up next here on How About Wow, I got a couple of fun plays here for you. What if I told you Kevontae Turpin,
this is wild,
50 pounds, knocked Tyler Smith on his ass? Okay, first of all, I'm sure you can tell me low man wins. I'm sure that helped you quite a bit throughout your NFL, your collegiate and high school career.
Jules will tell you that, dude. When I first got to Kentucky, they put me in a squat rack with these 2'6'8" dudes. I'd do a calf raise to get the bar out. that was hazing 101, man.
No, you're an absolute monster. But how else would you explain Kevontae Turpin knocking down Tyler Smith? I mean, the guy might not be. I guess it just speaks to the power that you can produce when you're pushing in one direction. He's so quick. He's so explosive. And maybe he's solidly built. I need to believe that, because if they use him as much as they did today, I'm serious, bro. Kevontae Turpin had twice as many touches in today's padded practice as any other Cowboys skill player. They got plans and they're pushing the envelope. Will he be durable enough? I hope that hit right there is evidence that he's stout and solid.
What's the Newton's Law thing? I'm totally trying to nerd out here. What's the Newton's Law? It's force equals mass times acceleration. Is that it?
Okay. So sounds about right.
Turpin's small, but he's fast as hell.
Yeah.
And the force he can generate is 153 pounds times 432. When the other dude is standing still, it doesn't matter if he's as big as me or you. I mean, in this situation, you take me out.
Yeah.
And I just what I love, I was actually worried when I saw this pop up on Twitter. I was worried about whiplash concussion protocol. That was the thing that, you get hit like that, you go down like that, you do a little cartwheel and pop back up. I mean, I got ear hold one time on coming back on a pick. You know what? Like the Warren Sapp thing that got outlawed. Like that stuff that's nasty, where you're going and head hunting when things start. That's why you can't touch the quarterback anymore, because they go take guys out. But like what they say, what I always tell my wife and my mother-in-law and my own mom when they're worried about how bad stuff looks, is the ones that look like they hurt don't. It's the ones that don't look like they hurt that suck.
Yeah, and I can't imagine an offensive line has been in many of those situations, but that was pretty impressive. I was worried about like hip pointer, ribs, knees, but it was good to see Tyler Smith pop back up. And he didn't get his lick back on Turpin, obviously, because they're both on offense, but he did have a pretty big hit himself going against, unfortunately, Mazi Smith a few minutes later. Okay, so that's your one technique defensive tackle, basically just getting bullied and ragdolled and taken for a ride. And Tyler Smith, is probably one of the very few players in the league that could be as strong as Mazi Smith. But
yeah,
I feel like at this point he's got to go. It's become an embarrassment and it's a bust, and you got to acknowledge when you're wrong and just move on so you can find somebody else that can do the job.
Tyler Smith is a man, and what bothered me the most about this clip wasn't the loss. Everybody gets beat. What bothered me is that it looked like Mazi quit on the play. What bothered me is that it looked like he got beat and he shut down, and Tyler Smith's not bleeping around.
And there's one of these every day.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is like if what you're saying. So look, you don't want to wish will on anyone. You don't want anyone to get hurt. You don't want anyone to get cut. I mean, we're talking about people's lives, right? And obviously, he's a Michigan man. He's going to go find something else to do. But when you start talking about you would hope, you would think, and then hope becomes think, becomes act, and then do, get it done, execute. You would want to get on that track. Like, if people are saying you're a bust, then if you got beat, you would be fighting like hell, maybe even cheating. Maybe you slip that. Maybe you hit him with a little like okey doke and just get off of it, and maybe even take yourself completely out of the play, so it doesn't look that bad on film. I mean, that's like 15 yards and you're on your ass, and now you're potentially talking about rolling into your teammates and getting them hurt because you're sorry. Like, it's frustrating when dudes are fighting for their lives and it looks like they just don't want to fight.
But from a former rec basketball player, it is the worst when you get hurt because somebody's not out there paying attention, doesn't know what the bleep to do, or is clumsy and lazy, and if there was an injury on that play, it would have been really, really frustrating. Okay. I told you about Turpin, and I'm sure you saw some of these on social media. Here's a play that just kind of illustrates what I think they're trying to use Turpin for. Okay, I'm sure you noticed the fake handoff to Javonte. So this is like, what do you call that? Shotgun play action. I don't know the exact technical name for that, but we're faking the run. When they realize it's a fake, they're going to turn and run back the other way, and then Turpin's going around the corner. This is about, we're going to threaten down the field so much and then threaten the run game that if we get the ball in the hands of an electric, super fast guy, whether that's Turpin or Blue, we might be able to take what would have been 4 and 5 yard gainers into 12 yards down the sideline, just keep the chains moving. And I think that's the only thing that explains how Kevontae Turpin is more involved in this offensive game plan than anybody but Lamb and Pickens right now. Like, he's the third dude. And I think it's just get him the ball after we scramble the defense's minds and reads.
Well, when you start talking about some of these RPOs, what I'm actually really fascinated about, why I love training camp and particularly being in full pads, is if you watch that clip again, Dak's ball placement is terrible, and the receiver's blocking someone in the back, right? So, like, we're focused on Turpin because we're talking about what he might add to this offense. This is why the reps are so important, and this is why maybe Dak's trying to protect Turpin, and the same way we would give Burrow credit for hitting Chase inside on purpose. But when Dak has such a challenging career, metrically with ball placement and off target, on target, big time throws and all that stuff. But then you go, well, hold on. Is that actually a really good throw by Dak? Not just because he's protecting Turpin, but because the receiver got beat inside so bad. And if he throws that ball where it's supposed to be, it's at the very worst, the dude's blown up, or at the very least, the dude's blown up. And at the very worst, that ball goes up in the air and it's a pick six going the other way. So there's a lot to be desired on plays like this. This is why it's so important that when you're in pads, you're going full go. I mean, this is why I've been really, really, really easy on Mozzie Smith because I'm rooting for the guy. But this is why it's so easy to be hard on him on the previous clip you showed.
So that's a pure RPO. Dak's ball fake is terrible, and maybe the placement is good. But on that swing out, and kind of Turpin made him right by being so quick that he could turn around and get the edge and beat multiple defenders just with pure speed. But like, if there's nobody in front of Turpin and Dak still makes him turn his back to catch the football,
yeah, that's awful.
Yeah.
The only thing that you have to take with a grain of salt there is that even with the RPO, there's still an element of throwing the ball without the seams a lot of the time because the play happens so fast, and it's about the timing as much as it is about the accuracy of it, because you're really just trying to get the ball. You're either right at the snap because you're giving it and you've got the look, the numbers, and you win right away with the run game, or you're just trying to get the bubble out so quick because you're right out there, because the defense has to be wrong in one of those places, right? So if he's throwing that ball without the seams, like, that's one of the hardest things to do. Like, the guys, like when you see the Burrows, and then even Mahomes is one of the places where you give him his flowers with some of the things that he does with fucked up balls. Aaron Rodgers is incredible at it, but he also likes his balls overinflated. For all the Tom Brady fans out there, go Google Aaron Rodgers overinflated balls and ask us why he hasn't ever been suspended. But I'm happy to have him in Pittsburgh no matter what the PSI is.
Okay, up next here. I don't know why you'd want an overinflated football. Maybe does it travel better?
Dude, there's so many things. Dude, you look at the ball that is played with is basically black. It's not just the kicker balls. Pay attention to the balls this year more than you ever have. Every single ball is doctored by every single quarterback. It's the most ridiculous thing that we ever talk about. None of them play the same way that they're tested pre. That's why when stuff happens and you get into the variable gas laws and all that other bullshit, it doesn't even matter because there's so much shit on those balls and they do so much stuff to them with the.
Well, I mean, come on. The Patriots broke records and did stuff that was so outlier with ball carrier fumbles that year. Like, their guys weren't fumbling because the balls were much squishier and easier to get their fingers into. So, I'm with you on hey, the league had a hard on to bust the Patriots, but I do think there's a scientific advantage to be gained.
Can we also just say 45-7? Like, if we're like, fumble variance didn't account for them dominating folks. Like,
it was an incredible team. It was an incredible team. It was an incredible dynasty. And I think the cheating is just one example of how they left no stone unturned when it came to winning. Right?
Yeah, I mean, if the Cowboys would do that with all the amalgamation of money and picks and all the other things, I think there'd be a whole lot of people who would be real happy. They would trade a lot of the scandal for even one more ring.
Okay, I'm going to say this next thing. I think Brian Schottenheimer might be the best coach the Cowboys have had since Jimmy Johnson. Nothing has made me more frustrated during the Dak Prescott era than them pretending that he was good enough to mitigate average offensive line play and he didn't need an elite running game. Here's Brian Schottenheimer at the podium today talking about his plans for this Cowboys run game.
Javonte had some great runs. Miles had some great runs. We were running some gap schemes and things like that. And some, we call them, double team plays where you're not pulling people. And I mean, they hit it shoulder square, no fair dodging. Thought we popped some nice runs. I thought we did a really good job in the run game yesterday of moving some people. Jaden had a couple really explosive runs, which was good to see. We got him on the safety one time. And, the guy, Phil Maffa, I'm starting to feel him. I'm starting to feel Phil, like Phil's a guy who hasn't played football in a long time, and so you're starting to feel him and you're seeing the talent, which gets you excited. And then I'm going to say it again. You guys don't have to write it down because I know you're tired of hearing about it, but Hunter Lepke is an incredible football player. He really is. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, just his instincts for the game and what he does and what he brings, and the fact of being able to play 3-4 positions is incredible to me. And I can't say enough great things about him.
He went on to say, we're going to run the damn ball. Don't worry about it. But there was a lot of interesting discussion today on the tennis courts about Hunter Lepke and the pulling guards in power and counter along with fullback play, maybe being the key. And because of that, maybe this is something that on another team they wouldn't want us talking about, but the Cowboys are good with information flowing for the most part. Hunter Lepke has been on the field maybe more than any other running back because of his diversity, his versatility, and the ways they can get him involved with or without the football, kind of like Kyle's Juszczyk with the 49ers. What do you think about that plan?
Yeah, well, I mean, his background is so all over the place, right? Because he played tailback, tight end, wildcat, quarterback, right? He's one of those true jack of all trades guy. Wasn't he multi-sport, high school, like super duper star kind of guy? Not just in football, right? I mean, he's one of those dudes that is one of the first guys you pick at recess because no matter what game you're playing, he's going to figure out a way to win. And I don't know, like if you go, I was just thinking about this, like if Javonte didn't have anything left in the tank, and you can't count on Jaden Blue because of size and fumbles, and just 400 touches is a lot to ask of any rookie that isn't like a pedigree, first round, 6 foot plus 220 type running back like Omari and Hampton. Like, why not? Like, if it's him and Maffa having to be the headbanger guys, why not? I mean, Andy Reid was willing to take a chance on a guy until he couldn't hold on to the ball himself, right? But I mean, like Mike Allstott didn't come out of nowhere, right? Like these guys that look a certain way and play a certain way, all they do is play their way into touches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that has slowly developed under Mike McCarthy. He was trying to figure out ways. He knew he liked the guy, but they were trying to use him more as just a halfback, and it became quickly obvious that if you want Hunter Lepke to be a workhorse running back or even part of your running back room, he just doesn't have the burst or the wiggle or whatever it takes to get open or to make the most out of holes. I think in this role where almost always he's going to be a blocker coming into the game that could catch the ball, now his carries are going to surprise the defense. And now, I think maybe it's only 2 or 3 carries a game, if that. But I think a very impactful role is what we're looking at here, because you want to be a physical run team, but you didn't get a better running back. You added Tyler Booker, but you're basically the same offensive line that you were last year. I mean, you had Zach Martin, right? So how much is Booker really improving? Not much. So you're going to have to do that with a scheme. And now you're going to get, instead of man trying to beat man, or we're getting out in zone and all trying to head to an area and clear some space, now you're actively pulling a guard in, adding a fullback to that point of attack that can just smash and blow open holes. And heck, I'm here for it. I don't actually, have it in my head other than being able to talk about other players and the roles they've had with other teams, because this would be something completely different than what Mike McCarthy was trying to do with him, just trying to figure out a way for this guy he really liked to be a running back that can produce, catching and running.
Yeah, well, you can't talk about Juszczyk, and I know it's not the same athlete profile, but you can't talk about Juszczyk without talking about Patrick Ricard, right? And I mean, Juszczyk was in Baltimore before he was in San Francisco, just like Ricard was a nose tackle before he was a fullback. And when you start looking at it, I think they've gone to something like, I mean, shoot, it's got to be like 13 or 14, whatever Pro Bowls in a row between them. I know they're in different conferences, but like when you're talking about, fullbacks and schemes and surprise, like here comes Juszczyk on a route that you don't see anybody else run, or here comes Ricard actually getting the ball. Juszczyk is one of the guys that I think people think he gets the ball a lot more than he does because of how popular he is, because of how successful they've been. I mean, he's really it's like 25 catches right? 17 games, 25 catches. It's once and a half, maybe twice in a game. But in the Super Bowl and in the playoff run, he had impactful plays, but he also had plays that they missed. There were pop plays that because of the surprise or because of his skill or both of those things. And then, of course, the Shanahan scheme and their ability to bleed off of base plays and uniquely curate routes against the coverage that they're expected to see and ultimately or oftentimes get. When you think about the role this guy might have, and if Schottenheimer likes him at all, and he's a fan favorite, he's versatile, and he can do a bunch of different things, that's the crazy part about it is you're really only talking about like 2 counting plays per game or less, and each one of those might pick up a first down, or it might turn into a touchdown, or whether it's a drive extender or a drive finisher. They become so meaningful because when you call his number, the expectation is that something really, really important happens.
Yes. And I'm here for it, a little bit of surprise, a little bit of deception. And, I think Hunter Lipke could be, definitely have that kind of role with this team. I mean, this is now back-to-back head coaches that have loved the guy and insisted that he can be a major part of winning. I just don't think Mike McCarthy had the creativity to actually bring that out.
What do you think so that bleeds into what I was going to dig into a little bit with you is like when he's talking about 3 positions, is he counting tailback as one of those, or is he saying FH and actually like inline Y?
I don't think inline is there. I think it's got to be the H-back.
Right? Yeah.
Maybe tight end.
Because then when you start talking about the 4th tight end in Pittsburgh, Connor Hayward, Cam's little brother, right? They got Mount Washington, they got Freiermuth, and they traded, as part of the Minka move, they get Jonnu, and everyone's talking about their 3 tight ends. Well, Connor Hayward actually plays a good bit. He doesn't really get the ball very much, and his catches have actually gone down, but they use him everywhere. And the kinds of things that you're talking about that are really interesting are where you talk about like flow motion, and you start talking about some of the pin and pull stuff. This is potentially how you could mitigate somebody like Booker's athleticism is if you're using Hunter to be the guy who's getting on the track.
Yeah, I love that. And we have not seen him in line at all. I don't think he can go be that tight end. I don't think he's got the size for it. What is he, 240 pounds or something like that? And he's kind of short.
Right.
But yes, out in the slot or even wider, he's a quarterback. He's got the hands that as long as it's not a good corner that he's matched up against, he could potentially make a play there.
Well, you want a 2-quarterback system. You give me Joe Milton and give me the backup fullback, whatever he is.
I need guys like Lipke. I need receivers like Cedric Wilson. I need tackles that used to be tight ends that might be able to throw the football. I do think that what we're seeing now is just scratching the surface of how caveman NFL coaches have kept this game in the Stone Ages because they were so scared of turnovers. They're literally giving up points. Like, I do know that when you're throwing the ball across the field, we had a play last year like this. Was it the Browns that gave up a pick 6 on just a horrible decision that these guys made? So it's got to be smoothed out, and you got to find the right guys to execute it. But positionless football, it's already settling in. You see in basketball, you see it in football now. We got an invader, don't we? It's time to run, New Bear. Can't wait to see you in here tomorrow. A massive day of news for the Cowboys today. We dodged quite a bullet there with that Tyler Guyton news, didn't we? Until tomorrow, for New Bear, I'm Dawson. How about wow?